Salt. It's something most of us overlook daily, yet it holds incredible meaning and spiritual power across religions. Imagine that within each tiny grain lies a source of purification, protection, and spiritual depth. Sounds unlikely? Yet both Buddhism and Christianity reveal profound wisdom in something as simple as salt. While Christianity regards salt as a symbol of eternal covenant, purity, and divine protection, Buddhism embraces it as a tool for grounding, mindfulness, and release. So, what hidden secrets about salt might we uncover when comparing these two traditions? How can a humble mineral offer both timeless wisdom and practical practices in our lives? Today, we'll explore 5 fascinating insights into salt in Buddhism and the Bible, analyzing their similarities, unique teachings, and how they can enrich our everyday spirituality. In Buddhism, salt serves as an ancient method of cleansing not only physical spaces, but also spiritual energies. Buddhist practitioners place bowls of salt around their homes or meditation spaces, understanding salt's unique ability to absorb and neutralize negative energy. This is believed to purify the space, allowing for peace and focus, a crucial foundation for mindfulness and meditation. In the Bible, salt also has deep cleansing significance, especially in the Covenant of Salt, a sacred bond between God and the people of Israel. This covenant, found in Numbers and 2 Chronicles, symbolizes an unbreakable relationship of purity and preservation. Salt, in this context, serves as a reminder of God's unwavering faith and commitment to His people. Both traditions see salt as a purifier, though Buddhism emphasizes salt's role in creating a balanced, focused environment for personal practice, while the Bible's covenant sees salt as a timeless anchor in one's connection to God. In both traditions, salt provides a form of spiritual cleansing, a way to keep spaces and relationships pure and protected, whether in meditation or in one's faith journey. Salt's simple, unchanging nature symbolizes purity in both Buddhism and Christianity, each with its own unique take on integrity and spiritual strength. In Buddhism, salt's stability serves as a reminder to remain grounded in purity, just as salt itself doesn't decay or lose its essence. This symbolism encourages practitioners to cultivate an inner state that is calm, honest, and unmoved by external chaos or fleeting emotions. In Christianity, salt also symbolizes purity, but here it's associated with moral preservation and integrity. In Matthew chapter 5:13, Jesus tells his followers that they are the salt of the earth, challenging Christians to preserve their spiritual values in a world that often feels morally unstable. Salt here reminds followers of their responsibility to be agents of stability and integrity. Though slightly different, both traditions honor salt's purity, encouraging individuals to maintain a stable, upright character. For Buddhists, this means staying true to one's essence without being swayed by emotional impurities. For Christians, it means upholding moral purity in a world of changing values. Both perspectives, however, agree that salt calls for a commitment to personal integrity and pure intentions. Salt in Buddhism often serves as a protective boundary during meditation or ritual practices. By sprinkling salt around their meditation areas, Buddhists create a symbolic shield that keeps out negativity and allows for a focused, distraction-free space. This boundary building reminds practitioners to protect their minds and hearts from external distractions or negativity, maintaining a safe inner sanctuary. In the Bible, salt similarly appears in protective contexts, notably as a tool in spiritual warfare. In 2 Kings chapter 2, 19-22, the prophet Elisha uses salt to heal Jericho's cursed waters, restoring life and protection to the land. Here, salt becomes an instrument of divine intervention, illustrating God's power to protect and heal. This act shows that salt can be more than a physical substance. It can act as a divine shield against harm. While Buddhism uses salt to symbolize a mental boundary for concentration, the Bible frames salt as a protective tool in spiritual battles. Both views highlight salt's ability to guard and protect, whether for a quiet meditation or to break a curse. In each tradition, salt's protective quality encourages practitioners to hold on to their inner peace and stay focused on their spiritual purpose, even amidst chaos. In Buddhist rituals, salt grounds practitioners in the present, sharpening awareness and encouraging mindfulness. This physical connection, touching and feeling the texture of salt, reminds practitioners to stay present in their bodies, grounding them during meditation. This practice highlights salt as a sensory tool to anchor thoughts in the here and now. In the Bible, salt is also associated with intentional practices, especially in sacrificial offerings. Leviticus 2:13 commands that grain offerings be seasoned with salt, symbolizing the purity and dedication behind each offering. Here, salt signifies the sacredness of the act, grounding it in sincerity and respect toward God. In both traditions, salt serves as a grounding force. For Buddhists, it's a sensory anchor to help quiet a wandering mind. For Christians, it's a marker of dedication and purity in offerings. Both perspectives use salt to ground practitioners, whether in the present moment or in devotion, guiding them toward a sincere, focused spiritual practice. In Buddhism, salt serves as a symbol of life's impermanence and the practice of non-attachment. Salt dissolving in water beautifully illustrates the idea of letting go, reminding practitioners that everything, even our challenges, eventually fades. This dissolving quality encourages Buddhists to live without attachment, to embrace the transitory nature of experiences, and to find peace in life's ever-changing flow. In Christianity, salt holds almost the opposite meaning, representing an eternal covenant. Unlike the transient nature of salt dissolving in Buddhism, the covenant of salt in the Bible symbolizes God's unwavering, everlasting love. This salt is a promise of faithfulness, one that transcends time and reminds believers of a relationship with God that doesn't dissolve or fade. Although these ideas may seem contradictory, they actually offer complementary wisdom. In Buddhism, salt's transience invites practitioners to live lightly, letting go of attachments that bring suffering. In Christianity, salt's eternal nature provides stability and assurance, anchoring believers in their relationship with God. Together, these teachings illustrate a balanced spiritual approach, accepting life's impermanence while also embracing eternal truths that bring comfort and purpose. In Buddhism, salt is sometimes used in blessings and offerings to symbolize purity, gratitude, and reverence. Sprinkling salt over offerings or during ceremonies elevates the gesture, showing respect and intention. This act reminds practitioners to approach each offering, even the smallest actions, with sincerity and humility, highlighting the importance of devotion. In Christianity, salt represents God's covenant, especially in sacrificial contexts. The salt covenant emphasizes a sacred bond of purity and devotion. Just as salt purifies, it signifies the faithfulness God expects in return from believers. Salt becomes a reminder of a commitment to purity and respect within the divine relationship. Both perspectives invite individuals to approach their faith and actions with respect and intention. In Buddhism, salt's role in offerings emphasizes sincerity and reverence. While in Christianity, the salt covenant represents a promise of devotion. Salt, in both contexts, calls for heartfelt offerings that reflect one's faith and commitment. Salt's spiritual role in Buddhism and Christianity extends far beyond its use as a seasoning. For Buddhists, salt acts as a tool for purification, grounding, protection, and mindfulness. For Christians, it symbolizes purity, an eternal covenant, and divine protection. Together, these practices reveal salt as a mineral with deep meaning, connecting us with profound wisdom across traditions. In today's fast-paced life, we can draw on these teachings to bring balance and intention to our daily routines. Try using salt to cleanse your space, or reflect on the stability it offers as a metaphor for integrity. Let salt remind you to release unnecessary attachments, creating a mental space that feels calm and open. Or use it as a grounding tool, anchoring you in the present and providing a sense of protection in your spiritual practice. Salt's spiritual symbolism from both Buddhism and Christianity reminds us that even the simplest items can hold profound meaning, guiding us toward purity, focus, and intention. These timeless practices teach us that small actions can foster calm, resilience, and connection with the sacred. Salt, in both Buddhism and Christianity, serves as a bridge between the physical and spiritual, offering lessons on purity, protection, grounding, and mindfulness. It reminds us to seek balance, finding strength in both impermanence and constancy. Each hidden secret about salt offers us ways to deepen our spiritual lives, whether we're seeking grounding, protection, or a reminder to stay true to our values. The next time you reach for salt, let it remind you of these deeper teachings, a source of peace, clarity, and purpose waiting to enhance your journey. May salt's wisdom from both traditions inspire you to walk a path of purity and mindfulness, enriched by timeless insights. So, how will you bring the wisdom of salt into your life? Will you use it to cleanse your space, practice grounding, or release attachments? Let me know in the comments. If you found these insights inspiring, be sure to check out our next video, where we uncover even more hidden spiritual symbols that connect us with ancient wisdom and offer peace and clarity in our daily lives. Whether you're curious about how other everyday items hold spiritual significance or are looking to deepen your practice, there's always something more to explore. Thank you for watching, and may your journey be as simple, clear, and transformative as the humble grain of salt.